Welcome to the first episode of the Good Knowledge, Evil Ignorance podcast. My name is Kyle. I'm going to use this lovely fact of knowledge that I have, which is that I know nothing. And it's very freeing. And I'm going to use this to be able to let myself think verbally into this little microphone in my closet, in my home in Key West. And what I'm trying to accomplish here is simply that, kind of the pursuit of knowledge, really, which is what philosophy is. But I don't want to do so in the very pompous and, I'm so smart and I'm going to talk about the important things and the deep things of life. No, I'm not going to do any of that because it's kind of overdone. And honestly, I don't know enough to sound like that or to be like that. Hence, I know nothing. And so essentially, I'm going to kind of do some guided rambling in my closet. I have some notes, but nothing too serious because it is free thinking. And I want to try to use simply what I have in my head to answer some questions that I've always had or that I think I've had the answers to up until now. And I want to start with why I have decided that I know nothing. It's very Socratesian. Yeah, don't you think? Or Socratarian? I don't know. It's Socrates. One of the greatest things I've ever heard him say is, I know nothing. And I'm not going to quote him properly here, but essentially what he's saying is one of the greatest indicators of your wisdom is realizing that you know nothing. And that's what I decided to do here. Because there are so many times where I've gone out into the world with knowledge that I thought was useful and knowledge that I thought was true. And, sometimes it was and sometimes it wasn't. But most of the times I've realized that even if I was saying it and even if it was true, I didn't necessarily deserve to say it. They were unearned bits of knowledge. And I'd either heard it from somewhere, either over the YouTube or over podcasts or in conversation with others. And I went, oh, yeah, that sounds right. And then I would just regurgitate it. And the little person in the back of my head was going like, what? You don't know that. You don't actually know that. You didn't research it. You just believed someone who they told you. And now you're just going with it, and you're going to try to, win an argument and with this bit of knowledge that you don't have. And so basically, I'm going to do kind of what, and I'm comparing myself already to two incredible thinkers. Just so you know, I do not think I'm up there, but I'm just going to try to do what they did, one of which is René Descartes. I think, therefore I am. What he did was decide that he couldn't discern what was true and what was reality, and so he had to start at the very bottom. He had to recreate his system of beliefs from one thing, and he had that one thing being, I think, therefore I am. And I'm not going to do justice to it because this is guided rambling in a closet without many notes. But if I remember correctly, essentially, I think, therefore I am means that, well, I am experiencing something. There's something going on that is me, and there's something going on. So I have to exist in some capacity, whether or not I am a bundle of code in a simulation, whether or not I'm some kind of smart AI, whether or not I'm consistently dreaming, or it's just actually reality. Whatever it is, I'm here, and I'm going through something. So let's start there. And so that's what basically this podcast is going to be. It's going to be the building blocks of a way of thinking and a way of thinking about ideas and questions and answers. And I'm going to do so in an enthusiastic and lighthearted way so that hopefully we have smiles on our faces while we're doing this and not, smoking a pipe cigar and drinking scotch and looking at each other in fancy ways. Not that the latter two are bad. In fact, there are probably episodes where I will be having a drink. I don't know about smoking because I don't want to hotbox my closet here. That would be weird, and it would smell pretty quickly. And my girlfriend's clothes are in here, and that would be unfortunate. So I think we need to start somewhere, and I think we need to start right off the bat with the idea of whether or not there is such thing as truth. And I know that seems kind of like a silly question, but I've had many conversations, and one of which was rather recently with a coworker of mine. We were talking about like government regulating things and what they should and shouldn't regulate. And it went something along the lines of what she said. It went something along the lines of well, we probably shouldn't have the government regulating things that we can't know about, that there is no truth. It's all about opinion, and so therefore you can't have the government regulate what is an opinion. And at the time, we were talking about some pretty important things, partly what to do with the value of human life. And, I came back and I said, I couldn't agree with you more, but this subject is not necessarily opinionative. There is a truth to it. And I've noticed this a lot in myself when I was younger, in family, in friends, and you hear this kind of idea that there is no truth. Everything is subject to the will of our opinions, and everything is kind of up in the air, and it's all kind of based on how you want to think. I mean, no one actually believes that, right? No one actually believes that because we wake up in the morning and we drink water. Why do we drink water? Well, we have to sustain ourselves. Well, what if you had the opinion that you could go on through life without water? What if water was this weird conspiracy that the powers that be have been teaching us their entire lives? Like, oh, you need to drink water. And maybe there's like some kind of weird poison in the water that makes us all woo. And really, we can go through life without ever drinking anything and be fine. This is just some kind of made-up thing. That feeling of thirst that you have, that's just made up. That's your addiction to water. But of course, we know that's not true. You need water. And maybe not exactly water, but you need some kind of H2O in there to keep you going because your body's like 70% water. But how do you know that's true? The scientists just say that. Have you actually tested your body content? I haven't. So I'm just going to go ahead and trust that is a representation of reality that I can count on to be accurate. But we all believe that there are truths. There's got to be. I mean, I'm reaching out right now and I'm touching one of my Hawaiian shirts, and it's very much there. Now, whether or not it's a code in a program, whether or not it's me dreaming, to what capacity it exists isn't the point. But in some way, it does exist. And the truth of the Hawaiian shirt is that it's there. It's physical. I can touch it. Just like you need water. And we're going to, by the way, I don't even want to go into any of that. I'm going to digress real quick. I think we need to throw away the whole simulation theory. I think we need to throw away the whole we're dreaming theory. We're gonna kind of operate here in this podcast and going forth as if we have kind of the majority of things right, which is that we are human beings existing in a flawed world on a rock in the middle of space. And let's just go. We won't even have to bring up multiple universes. That's a headache. Let's just go with we're here. And we're going to try to explain the things that we can see around us. We're not going to try to explain how we got here. Of course, religion and God will be brought up at some point, I'm sure. But for now, let's just kind of settle on the truth that we can find and whether or not it exists. And really, I've already kind of answered that, and we're only 8 minutes in. Yeah, there is truth. There's got to be. There are baselines that we have to adhere to. There are rules that we have to live by, or else we will not live anymore, like drinking water, like looking both ways before you cross the street. Something simple as that. It's like, hey, you could just close your eyes and think, well, if I believe it, no car will hit me. And then you walk across the street, no car hits you, and you go, ha, see? Well, you just got lucky. Do that 5 more times on an interstate, and you'll see how lucky you get. And you're going to get hit by a car at some point, and you're going to get really hurt, if not killed. And no matter what you believe, that happens. And so, essentially, what the point I'm trying to make here by saying all this is that, yeah, there are certain things that are true, and that's okay. And it's okay. It's actually kind of freeing that there is truth out there, that things can be figured out, that it's not just opinion. And I get the sense that some of us try to run from it, because if there are truths, that means that we sometimes fall short of meeting those truths. Like, maybe you should get up in the morning and not sleep in until 11 o'clock. And you go, well, that's just an opinion. People are different, some people need to sleep in until that late because they blah, 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 blah. I go, yeah, maybe, maybe you stayed out really late and you need to catch up on some sleep. But if you keep an inconsistent circadian rhythm, right, maybe you're going to make the rest of your week more difficult. Maybe you're going to be more prone to anxiety and depression. Maybe your appetite isn't going to be as consistent. You're screwing up a bunch of potentially mental No, you're screwing up a bunch of mental faculties by not creating a consistent lifestyle. And you could say that's all opinion. You could say that depends on the person, and I bet that is true to some extent. Maybe it does depend on the person's chemistry and the biology. But it's speaking generally, speaking broadly, you can make an accurate claim that there are certain things we can do that make our lives better, that are true. And I think we run from a lot of these truths because, well, we've been told that everything's about opinions. We've been told that you can make your own life. You can be your own person. You can live your own truths, right? When they say speak your own truth, oh my goodness, I can't think of a worse thing to think is that you have your own truths. Now, I know there's different contexts that this is said in, right? Like you have your own truths, like my own, like if I could use if I was trying to be really nice and really kind about this sentence, my own truth, I guess my own truth would be that I find comfort in being alone sometimes, just like I find comfort in being with my girlfriend, just like I like finding comfort with being on the phone with my parents, like depends on the situation, right? But I don't know if that's what people say. I don't know if that's what they mean. I think when people say speak your own truth, you are saying make a claim on reality and then you can have it be true because it's your perception of reality. And it's like when you say you're a realist. I don't believe there's such thing as a realist, because by saying you're a realist, you're saying that you have a grasp on reality that is accurate, and therefore you're making judgments on that grasp that you think you have an accurate grasp of. That was terrible, but you know what I'm saying. And I'm kind of going all over the place. I mean, this is the first episode. It's very unstructured. I hope you understand. But I'm really just trying to create a baseline, to create something that we can go back to throughout the entirety of this podcast. When I have guests on, like coworkers or friends or family, we're going to talk about truth. As a little teaser for what's coming up, I think one of my first guests is going to be one of my coworkers at another job of mine. And I was like, hey, man, if there could be one thing that you were like, that you think you would have the most comfortable, if there could be one thing that you feel like you had the most grasp on that you would like to talk about on a podcast setting, what would it be? And he said aesthetics. And I thought that was perfect, because aesthetics, art, beauty, that is such a subjective thing. Can you really say that there is truth in the quality of art? Well, I think you can. I think a banana taped to a wall is not art. Objectively speaking, it's not art. I think peeing on a model of Jesus Christ is not art. And you can actually, maybe that one can be. I don't know. It's just that, right? But I don't know. That's what we're going to find out. Maybe when it comes to stuff like movies and art and music and the food, maybe there's not truth. But I think there is truth in everything, and that is what I'm here to prove. And at least to myself, if not to you, there is truth in everything. In food, yes, we might decide what tastes good to us and what, like, for instance, my girlfriend loves pickles. I hate pickles. What does that mean? Are pickles bad? Are pickles good? But maybe if you think about it that way, you're thinking about it the wrong way. But if you ask the question, are pickles food? Then yeah. But then what is food? Is this Hawaiian shirt that I keep referencing, is that food? I can eat it, but it's not really supplying any nutrients, right? So if I were to eat the shirt and only eat the shirt, I don't even know if this is a good, example, but like it would supply to me no nutrients other than space in my stomach and maybe whatever glimpses of nutrients are on the top because I didn't wash it and it's got some like dried sugar on there or something, So whether or not food is good or bad might be completely subjective. But whether or not food is food or not is a truth. It's a fact that we can go down and find a definition. And sometimes those definitions, sometimes those definitions are different. Maybe you and I have a different definition of food. Maybe one person thinks food is something you can chew on and swallow versus I think food is something that actually provides something to your body, or at least can be consumed by your body in the intake of, calories. And obviously salt and vinegar potato chips aren't probably the best thing for you, but they're still considered food because you can eat them and your body digests it, and the good stuff that is in there gets put out into your body, and the bad stuff. And the bad stuff goes out into your body as well. And gosh, just right now where I am, only 15 minutes in, I think, oh, you are way over your skis on this one, buddy. You can't define food. You don't know enough. And that's okay. I know nothing, right? This is the nice part. I know nothing. And so I'm just going to blabber here onto the microphone with you and talk. And hopefully by doing so, we will discover, if not the truths of reality, at least we will discover a way to find them. At least we can accept that there are truths and that we should strive for them. And an example of which is, one of the biggest things that bothers me about religion and about people who are religious and people who aren't is that I feel like all the definitions are totally screwed up. I feel like no one has any idea what they're talking about when they say God or Jesus. And then when you go, well, do you believe in God? It's like, well, what do you mean by believe? And what do you mean by God? And what do you mean by you? Who are you? What am I? Who am I? Am I an animal that has no free will? Am I a soul, a luminous being, as Yoda once said, that is just imprisoned inside this fleshy carcass that has the capacity for free will and thinking? What am I? And what does it mean to believe in something? Is it just if I say I believe in something, is that true, or is it how I act? And then what is God? Is it a being in the clouds, or is it a force, or is it another word altogether? There's a reason why the word God was never actually meant to be spoken, like Yahweh. Like the thing that is God should never be named because there's no way that a human brain could understand what it is. Because maybe God is not what we all think it has to be. God, it might just be like self-actualization and transcendence. And Jesus Christ might be a representation of truth, so that the way that you self-actualize, the way that you transcend to the next level of being is by accepting and finding and seeking truth. And then you look at super religious people. I don't even want to say that because that sounds kind of insulting, and I'm not trying to be at all insulting to anybody here. I might disparage. Well, I don't even want to disparage. I might say something as being, and I might make it sound like it's stupid, but part of the rules I've written down for me, and I'm not going to tell you all the rules yet. One of the rules I've written down for this podcast is to be kind and to empathize and to try to get into someone's head and not see them as being lesser than me because, again, I know nothing. And neither do you, and neither do they. We all know nothing. And by the way, if I claim to know something, I am surely the fool. That's a great lyric from Carry On, My Wayward Son. I also don't want to try to reference things as much as possible, but whatever. Anyways, back to what I was saying about God. Whenever I hear someone who goes to church and someone who I think doesn't have a grasp on what they're actually listening to, whenever they say, well, Kyle, the way into God is to accept Jesus as your Savior and to accept that He died for your sins and to seek Him and to be with Him. And then once you've done that, you can go and walk with God in the Garden of Eden again. Or after you die, you can go to heaven and transcend. What I hear when someone tells me that is I hear, hey, Kyle, if you want to have a good life and if you want to die and go to some kind of realm where everything's better and immortality is real and you can go there and just do whatever the heck you want, like play PUBG and play video games all day. If you want to get to that point where you can trick your brain into doing that right before you die, then what you need to do is accept that there is truth in life and you need to seek that truth. It's not about opinions. It's not about your truth. It's not about what you think you need to do in life. There are actually things that you have to do, whether you like them or not. And if you accept that and seek those truths and accept that burden, then you will live a good life and you will live the best life possible. And that's really what I think the whole God thing is. I think this whole idea of truth has been completely destroyed by modern society and by myself. People like myself and you and my family and my friends, and there's this big, wide gray area where we all are afraid to accept that there are truths. and that we have to find them. And, even in science, I mean, my brother and my mom talk about this like parallel universe thing all the time, and they go, "Oh, isn't that neat?" And I go, "God, that feels like a big, massive leap of faith right there to believe in that kind of thing. That is so way above my head. I do not understand any of this parallel quantum physics thing. I don't get it. I only get what I see in front of me, and this is why it's so easy for me to accept that I know absolutely nothing." It's like even in science, there are some times where as you and me, right, if we're not scientists ourselves, if we haven't seen the data, then we don't know that there is a moon up there, right? We just kind of trust what we see, and we trust that people have been there, and we trust that the scientists know how much it goes around the world. But do we know that there's a moon up there? Do we know that it's not some projected super awesome, high tech, projection up there that makes us believe there's a moon? I mean, I don't know why that would be the case. This is obviously a very silly example that I'm pulling out of my butt, but what do we know? There are truths, and we have to find them. And I think one of them, and I'm not trying to be political here, I know, but there is a big movement out there that what is a man and what is a woman? There is this big push, and I think most people don't buy this, but there is a big push in schools, in science, in politics, in culture, that there is no such thing as a man or a woman. It's all just this subjective creation of the patriarchal society in which, it's just to subjugate people. But if you want to be a man or you want to be a woman, then you can just be one. And by thinking that, I think you drive people crazy. I think you send people into this mystery world of having no truths that they have to make up all of it for themselves, and they're not going to do a very good job of it because they're flawed and they're stupid like me. If you said, "Hey, Kyle," okay, if you put me in like a big white room and said, "All right, we're going to wipe your memory, and then we're going to leave you in here for like a week, and we're going to let you come up with your own structure of belief, and then you're going to walk out the door and you're going to go live in the world," I would get wiped out pretty fucking quickly. And I think you would too. And I think everybody would. I think no one can just build their own structure of belief. You can't build your own value system. I really don't think so. Okay, well, you know what? Maybe it's projection, right? Because I surely can't. I rely on other people and other forms of knowledge to live in this world because I know nothing. And I accept that with joy. God, it's so great. Once I accepted that I know nothing, it's so easy to hear things and to learn things, or at least to be open to them. And of course, there are some times where I fight against something and I go, no, there's no way that's true. And that's also something I'm going to try to do here on this podcast, is I'm going to try to stop doing that as much as possible. Now, don't get me wrong. There are things that I'm going to hold myself to and choose to believe in, such as whether or not there are truths in this world. And I think I'm going to end it there for now. It's almost been 25 minutes. And I think this is the thing, right? I'm going to believe that there are truths. And then I'm going to go forth and live my life in search of those truths. Because I want to live the best life possible. I want to give my girlfriend, and maybe future wife, I want to give her the best life possible. And I want to be the best person to be around for my family and my friends and my coworkers and my bosses and my employees that I might have. And I want to be a better person for you listening, because I am putting myself out there on this thing called a podcast, which it seems like everybody else has one. Why should you listen to me? Why should you take half an hour or an hour of your day to listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth? Why? And I need to justify that to myself, and part of the way I'm going to do that is by accepting that I know nothing and that I'm going to seek these truths and try to figure it out in the most calm and nice and funny way, too. I also don't want this to be boring. I want you to enjoy this and laugh with me, because there are going to be times where we laugh. There are going to be times where maybe we tear up, and we might even cry together. Wow, that would be cool. Honestly, I'm looking forward to something like that. If I could do that with you on this, with just audio waves, that would mean I'm onto something, And actually, you know what? I said I was going to end it earlier, but I might want to end it here, because I was just listening to a podcast. No, I guess it was more of like a YouTube video thing on the way back from work today. And it was talking about this girl that was deaf her whole life. And then she heard music for the first time at 85. And everybody in the room, I mean, everyone was crying because they saw what happened to this girl, a woman now, who could hear for the first time. And, you know, speaking of the truths, there are some people, I've heard it, I've read it. There are some people in this world that go, why would you ever want to take deafness away from a deaf person? That's who they are. You know, that's you. Just because you hear doesn't mean everybody should hear. And I think, and by the way, I swear to God, I've heard that. I swear to God, that's out there. I'm not just making this up. There are people that are out there that think being deaf is like a good thing, and that it's part of someone's personality, it's part of someone's personhood to be deaf, and that you shouldn't try to change that because that's changing who they are. And boy, could I get into that a little bit, but I'm not going to because that's not very fun, and it's going to make me a little irritated, and I don't want to get irritated with you. I want to be happy, and one of the most happiest things I've ever read about and seen or watched are when people who are either blind or deaf see or hear for the first time. It is the most powerful thing you could ever watch. I recommend it right now. If I could recommend anything to you besides to keep listening to this podcast in the future, I recommend you go on to YouTube and you look, deaf person hears for the first time, or blind person sees for the first time. Even colorblind people. I watched the video of this 65-year-old man who is given these special glasses that could help him see color. I don't know how they work, but they work. And he's this big, tough, like Harley rider. He's got a mustache. He's kind of laughing at the whole thing. He's like, all right, whatever, babe. Thank you. I appreciate this. And he puts the glasses on, and everything changes almost in an instant. You can see his composure drop. You can see his hands. He's starting to like fidget with his hands because he feels so emotional. He can't even talk. You can see him experiencing something for the first time, something that is truly beautiful. Color. He could see the trees. He could see the color of his own wife and the clothes she had on and the color of her hair and the color of her eyes. And he could experience all of this for the first time when he never got to experience it before, and he was overcome. This big, burly man was overcome by this sensation of joy. And to me, that is one of the biggest proofs of there being truths in this world. Because he had color. He didn't have color his entire life. So who cares? Why do you need color? You made it this far. Because there is beauty. And there is wonder, and there are truth in this world. There is truth? Because there is beauty, there is wonder, and there is truth in this world. And all we have to do is accept that and reach out towards it and try to find it. And good God, who knows how much better our lives could be if we accepted that as being true. You know, I can tell you this from a personal standpoint. There's a reason I'm sitting in my closet talking about this, because my life has gotten infinitely better from where, not to say I had a bad life. I've had a very great life. I'm very fortunate. I have great parents. I was born in America. I mean, you win the lottery when you're born in America. Then I won the lottery when I was born with parents who weren't crazy. And then I won the lottery again when I didn't die. Well, a car didn't hit me. I didn't get struck by lightning. I've won the lottery so many times by being here. I'm not trying to say I had a bad life, but I had a bad outlook on life, and therefore my life was harder than it could have been. But my life has gotten so much better, and I have experienced so much more joy and love and happiness in this life ever since I decided that I know nothing, and there are truths, and that I have to find those truths in order to live this life in the best way that I can possible. And we're going to go ahead and wrap that up for the first episode. Thanks for listening. The next one's going to come out at some point. I don't know what it's going to be about. We're just going to kind of go from here, and I think here's the solid, the foundation. There is truth, and we're going to go find him. Thanks a bunch. This is the Good Knowledge, Evil Ignorance podcast. My name's Kyle, and I'll see you next time.